Wonderful. My name is Melanie Wright. I'm one of the co-founders here at Next Group, and I want to welcome everybody to this evening's Professional You 2.0. This is going to be a wonderful evening where we are welcoming 5 professional women and giving them an opportunity to share their stories. We hope during the conversation that you're able to pull some nuggets of interesting tidbits from folks that have re-entered the workforce or made a pivot. And hopefully you might find a little something in their experience that you might find inspiring and interesting, and be able to maybe take some action or follow up with folks after the fact, and help. And hopefully some of these tidbits will help you in your job search. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce one of my co-founders and dear friends, Candace Chow. And first start out for the folks that are new to Next Group. We wanted to give, before I do that, Candace, I'm going to do a quick shout out to our partners and all of our sponsors. I just wanted to take a quick minute, and Candace will give you a little bit more information. But we have, since 2019, really had an opportunity to partner with some amazing talent, for sure, but also some amazing individuals. And I think we hopefully captured a good chunk of them here. These are all clients that we've had the pleasure of working with or are still working with now. I did want to do a quick special shout out to a couple of folks, to our alma mater, the Kellogg School of Management, also to ZS Associates, and also to ExtendMed. Thank you to all of our partners that continue to work with us, that continue to see us as a go-to resource for folks who, we're looking for professional talent and women just like yourselves. Okay, I'm going to hand the mic over to Candace now and let her give everybody here a rundown on who Next Group is and what we've been doing over the last couple of years. And if I could just do one quick reminder for everybody that's in the audience now, if I could just have everybody do a quick check and make sure everybody is muted, so there aren't any disruptions for our panelists. All right. Thank you so very much. Candace, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Melanie. Hi, everyone. It's really exciting to be here tonight. I'm sorry it's dark for most of us out, unless you're on the West Coast. But we're going to shine a bright light on what it takes to be women in the workplace and how fun it is to kind of reimagine ourselves and reinvent ourselves. I wanted to quickly go through just a quick history of Next Group, because some of you out there really may not have talked to us before personally. We hope you all have, but Next Group, as Melanie had said earlier, launched in 2019 here in Evanston, and our 4 founders, Melanie, myself, Joan Sherman, and Tracy Quattrocki, all of us from the Evanston Skokie area. We just saw a need, lots of really amazing women in our midst who were considering relaunching the workplace. And so we had that first launch event in 2019. And we also then had our first hire, a placement of one of our, a woman in our talent network that same year. The next 2 years, during the meat of the pandemic, I guess we were all going through, we continued to grow. We tried out some new programming options, a boot camp. We did a couple other workshop series, obviously moving those to virtual, continued to grow our network of candidates, and continued to grow our partnerships with clients. And that grew, even despite the pandemic, grew through 20 and 21. Then we are here in 22, and we've just been bounding forward, I guess I would say. We've been able to add Marissa, who's here tonight, as our operations associate, and really managing a lot of our internal talent information. We've been able to bring on 2 new search associates, and I think Patty Barbado is here tonight. So Patty, wave. Find her, as well as Kim Glover, and Kim is actually away on vacation today. So that's been amazing. We've also been able to add kind of a marketing social media person. So that's just an indication of our growth, still doing programming. We're at over 2,500 women in our database. And by the end of this year, we're looking to make 100 placements, which is really amazing. That's across more than 100 employers, and We've been blessed to also have Melanie, who's been now carving out this whole concept of talent success, which is all of our programming, and then specifically, support of our candidates as they go through that cycle of being evaluated and kind of garnering their what's next to help them both from a confidence standpoint, make sure their stories are crisp and they're just able to put their best foot forward as they get into the interview process. So we're finding a lot of success with that. So that's kind of where we are today. We hope to continue, and we will continue to grow that as we go forward, and appreciate every one of you to be here tonight, but also to be part of our network. If you haven't joined our free network already, I know at some point Marissa's gonna put the URL to our Join Us page and our survey into the chat to make sure you can do that. And that just enables us to know who you are, what your background is, and make sure we're doing everything we can to bring opportunities to you, as well as, we have other supports like our weekly office hours that Melanie does, where we can provide support to you, regardless of whether you're interviewing with folks that we work with or anyone else out in the market. Then the next thing, speaking of open positions, perfect timing. I just wanted to highlight a couple current roles that we are looking for right now. Interestingly enough, most of these are in Evanston, but we have a couple in other locations. So as Melanie had said, we do work actively with Kellogg. You'll be hearing from Tamar tonight, who is just recently took on a role at Kellogg, and we've had some other placements there. There's a senior program director role open in Kellogg Executive Education that we are helping to staff. There's an associate director of marketing in executive education. There's also an associate director of marketing in the degree programs. It's not mentioned here, but that's still open. We just launched an administrative coordinator role for a local nonprofit, housing nonprofit called Reba Place. And those are all hybrid roles. We have an in-person role, really kind of a unique role, a development associate, events associate at the Cove School, which is in Northbrook, and they provide educational opportunities for kids in K through even beyond 12th grade, students with kind of complex special needs. And then the last role is 100% remote, and that's a Marcom lead. Anybody can do it. The organization is actually a women's organization out of California, but they're global, and their whole team is remote. And they do work in the policy legislative space around intellectual property, and they're really advocating for more women in that field. So those are all roles that we have going now. If you don't see something that tickles your fancy, still please register for our network, and we always have new things. And if you're interested in any of these, you can find them on our website at nextgroupus.com under the careers page. So would love to hear from you if you're interested in learning more about those. That's all for me. Thank you all.
That's great. Candace, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of our panelists are pinned and set. I think we are good to go. If I could ask all of our panelists to unmute themselves before, and to get started, instead of me introducing everybody, I'm going to hand the mic over, because I know that's why you guys are here, is to hear from these professional women and hear about their stories. So before we get started, I did want to remind everybody, all of the folks in the audience, if you have questions at any point during the conversation, throw them into the chat. As Candace said, Marissa is out there managing the chat, and we'll keep track of the inbound questions. What I'd like to do is make sure that we get through a good chunk of the conversation, but we will certainly allow time at the tail end. I'll ask Marissa to go through some of the questions, pick out a few, and then we can throw them out at our panelists. But I've got a couple of questions to get the conversation started, and we'll see where things go. So without further ado, I'd love to hand the microphone off first to Vanessa. Vanessa, if you could, and then I'll call on everybody else in our panel to follow suit. If you could just take a minute or two and share with the audience who you are, where you are now, and what you, how you got to where you are, where you were previously. And then we'll do a quick little round robin and get into the conversation.
Okay, hi, I'm Vanessa Merel. I currently am a program manager at ExtendMed, and I've been with the company for about 2 months. I previously was working in a estimating role in a pharmaceutical manufacturing. Previously, for the past 10 years or so, I have been working in manufacturing and kind of honing my skill set. However, I got my degree in theater. So this role that I'm currently in right now is the first time that I've been able to not only use the skills that I have been, I guess, cultivating over these past few years, but I also get to use the theater skills that I started with, you know, and went to school for, because there's a lot of public speaking, and there's some video and recording. ExtendMed has a web-based platform that has a few different options. There's a lot of Zoom meetings like this where we have advisory boards and speaker programs, but then there's also discussions. And, you know, all of these things require strong communications, and these are skills that I've been working on for years. No one has ever been a stranger to me, and I think that's where the theater background, you know, obviously comes into play. But you know, I've honed a lot of my technical skills in manufacturing. So this role that I'm in right now kind of makes my whole professional life make so much more sense. You know, it's the journey actually from start to finish is I feel like I'm on a path that makes sense now. And I know, especially for a lot of millennials who are in my age range, you know, when you graduate, you have an idea of what you want to do, but depending on what the market is, I graduated during the recession, or the first recession. And, you know, things weren't certain. So you just kind of try to find what works. And that was a lot of trial and error for me. But at the end of the day, I'm happy that it led to this path that I'm on now. So
that's great. That's wonderful, Vanessa. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Deborah, I'm going to let you go next. If you could share with the group where you are right now, and just a quick tidbit about sort of what your journey looked like.
Okay, so right now I am an investment banker for a merger and acquisition advisory. I hold a Series 7. I'm taking a company public. But that's not my background. So I went to school for pre-med, then pivoted from that as I discovered I hated hospitals, to English education, where I taught middle school for 10 years. And I laugh with the guys that I work with, because I say, look, I learned to negotiate from a room full of 13-year-olds that didn't want to do their work. So don't mess with me. And then when I had kids as a teacher, I did the math and I went, I am going to pay $300 a month to go back to work to cover the cost of taking care of my kids. I was like, well, that's stupid. I didn't have kids to pay somebody else to raise them and not earn any money doing it. So I was like, oh, I can stay home with them. It will be fun. But I don't sit still. So instead, I started a gluten-free vegan bakery, and rather reluctantly ended up, I made a cake and somebody had the cake and bullied me into making their kids' cake. And it kind of snowballed, and I ended up moving to Connecticut and did a self-run capital raise to buy a manufacturing facility and take the product into retail. And the guy who ran the company that I was working with, Touchstone, he goes, do you want to do this? And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And he goes, do you want to get up at 4 o'clock every morning and come to the manufacturing facility and watch people make cupcakes? And I went, no, I really, really don't. And he said, well, I think you should do my job. And I was like, I have a silly amount of coursework at college, but none of it is finance. I can't be an investment banker. And he said, yeah, you did a capital raise on your own with no help. You can be an investment banker. I'll fund your education if you'll take the Series 7 and come work at the company. And now 7 years later, I am a fully functioning partner. So my boss is me, which
That's
is
awesome.
great. But I do remember the first thing, and one of the reasons that I reached out to Candace was actually to hire. And when I sat down at my very first meeting with a whole bunch of investment bankers, the lady that was speaking was like, I'm so glad you're here. Do you know there's only 14% of the investment banking population that is women? 14% 7 years ago. We're not talking like, in the 60s, we're talking recently. I was like, that's ridiculous, because there's nothing about this that anybody that's intelligent can't accomplish. So gender shouldn't matter. And it's the ability to make your own schedule and function to do it. So I feel very passionate about getting women, younger, older, involved in heading directions that didn't seem like you should be able to do them.
That's great, Deborah. That's wonderful. See, I hope some of these stories are already starting to resonate with everybody here and get people excited about the potential and the possibility, right? Regardless of where you are in your career. Laura, I'm going to hand the mic off to you next, my friend, and let us know where you are right now and where you came from.
All right, thanks, Melanie. Hi, I'm Laura Patrell, and currently I am with CS Associates. I am in their enterprise global arm of the business in Marcom, which is marketing and communications. And I pivoted into this role from traditional, more strategic marketing focus. I'm in operations. What I wanted to do was really expand my marketing skill set, work at an organization that in and of itself is also expanding and going deeper globally. I have extensive experience working in Germany, speak German, lived in other European countries and gained other languages. So it was a really interesting opportunity that I just had to grab, and it's been phenomenal. So I can't say enough positive things about this experience so far. And I've been there since August, and it truly is a really supportive environment and a tremendous amount of ongoing learning, which I love. So prior to that, I was at Northwestern at Kellogg in the executive education organization. Again, with a marketing focus on the team and really working very customer focused on developing marketing strategies, plans, collateral for the executive education group. Enjoyed that experience as well. So I like to say I'm a pivoter because now I'm into ops and transformation, but I'm also a relauncher. I had started my career in marketing, in integrated, more traditional marketing as it used to be, and popped out from that role with some Fortune 500 companies to raise kids and move all over the planet. Did that for a significant period of time. When I relaunched back into the paid workforce, I relaunched back in with a smaller SaaS company doing their marketing, reporting directly to the VP of this smaller organization. But because I had, the German language skills and that cultural sensitivity, it was a great fit because I was working with my counterpart in Germany, real time in making sure that we had collateral, webinars, things of that nature, but really tailored to the American audience. And that's really what kind of kick-started my working journey. I have to say there have been a couple pauses along the way for sick elderly parents, which if you haven't had that yet, I think a lot of us are in the demographic of dealing with that, as well as you know, COVID and managing my children as they navigated through that early experience. So happy to share and answer any questions you may have, and look forward to getting to know all of you.
Wonderful, Laura. Thanks so much. Hey, Chris, I'm going to let you go next. And if you could just share again too, a little bit about where you are and how you got to where you are right now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris. So my background is in accounting. I did my bachelor's, I did my master's. I'm currently finishing up a doctorate in business. Originally, I think I told Melanie this before. Originally, I started off, it was just me. I was working in accounting, and then I took a break. We had kids. I nearly died. So I took like 2-3 years off, went back to work, started with TurboTax, doing income taxes for a few years. And then I said, okay, everybody's potty trained. Let's go and branch out more. And then right when the season ended with TurboTax, somehow me and Candace connected. It was on LinkedIn, we connected, and Candace was like, let me help you. And so that's how I get where I am now, where even though I live very far south suburbs, I'm working with Center for Independent Futures, which is in Evanston. That role I got with literally through Candace. So like I kind of owe this whole period of my career to Next Group, because they had the foresight to say, just because you've been out of the workplace for the better part of the last decade does not mean that you don't still have something to offer. It does not mean that we cannot find you a place where you feel heard, where you're acceptable, where they understand you as a woman, but also as a parent. And I'm really thankful because I am in a place where I have my kids and I'm still able to be home with my kids, and I homeschool my kids, and I only have to be in the office 1 day a week. So this year has been really, really awesome. And I'm not saying it because we're on this, in this Zoom and we're having these conversations. But the fact is that I'm in this place because I got to connect with Candace, and because Candace believed in who I was and pushed me to push myself in front of other employers that I probably never would have approached. So that's a little bit about little old me.
Chris, thanks. I appreciate it. And last but so not least, Tamar, if you could also do the same and just share just a quick tidbit about your story and where you are right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Melanie. So my name is Tamar Selch, and I am currently at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. I am the department manager for the finance department. This is the academic finance department. So these are the people who actually teach finance. These are not the people who deal with the finances of Northwestern, because you really, really don't want me dealing with the finances of Northwestern. Anyway, so this has been, a big change from what I started doing at the beginning of my professional life. I was actually an art historian and archaeologist, and was very much on an academic track. Worked in several archaeological excavations, worked in a museum as a curator, and was teaching also in academia. And as much as I loved it, I wasn't sure it was what I wanted to devote the rest of my life to. At that time, my husband and I were living outside of the US, and we moved to the US. We had our first child. And with the move and all these new things, it was time to step back, which actually was a really good time for me, with not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with my life. So it was a good time to just stay back, stay home with, at that point, my oldest. Then I had a few others. And in the meantime, like I think Deborah said, I could not sit still either. I got very involved in different aspects of my community, both school, all sorts of different aspects of the community. and slowly, and also kept teaching on the side a little bit of art history and archaeology related classes. But then I decided the kids are older. I want to go back to work outside the home. And I thought of different possibilities, and I ended up getting certified as a medical interpreter because I speak several languages, and started working as such. And then a hospital where I was working offered me, there was a vacancy for a manager of the interpreter department services. I was very much encouraged by the people I worked with to apply for that position. I got that position and worked as such for several years. And while it was a great job and I enjoyed very much what I did, it was a place where not having a clinical degree did not allow me to grow very much. And at that point, I was ready to grow and expand more. This whole management thing had been relatively new for me. I had worked, in different things related to community where I was able to use my management skills, my organizational skills. And I really worked on that as a manager of the interpreter services department. But I wanted to grow some more. And it's like, okay, where do I go from here? I was also in a job that they would have been happy to have me for the rest of my professional life. But again, I kind of wanted more. And it's, where do I start? I already did this relaunching thing, but how do I continue? Do I pivot? Do I stay where I am? And honestly, I'd known Candace for years from the community. When Candace launched the next group, I do remember signing up for the emails, and I get the emails and it's like, okay, let's reach out to Candace, see what she has to say. And I had this wonderful conversation with her. I think sometimes when you think about yourself and the things you can do, you don't see the full picture. And when somebody from the outside looks at you and hears about your skills, they have a much broader opinion. And this was very helpful. And we had this great conversation. And she said, you know what you should consider doing is make 3 different resumes. One for hospital and healthcare management. One of the other things I had talked with her about was maybe corporate training, because I taught for so many years and I love teaching. And I thought this might be a good way to apply my teaching skills. And the other thing she talked about was higher ed administration, which oddly enough, when I relaunched, that was one of the paths I had thought about, but I had kind of put it aside, not thought about it. And she said, think about it too. So about a week later, she reaches out to me and says, we have a couple of roles at Kellogg, which I think might be very interesting for you. Look at them. If you're interested, let me know and I'll connect you with my partner, Melanie. And so here's this role at Kellogg, which was a really interesting role, a very broad role, but it's like, I can totally do this and I can totally grow with this role. And, the rest is history, not that ancient history, because this only happened a few months ago. As of this past Monday, I've been 3 months in my job. It's kind of like being the house mother of the finance department. I just make sure that everything is running smoothly from the administrative side, making sure the faculty are having all their needs met, working also to make sure that the PhD students are having all their needs met, and just growing and learning a lot. So that's where I am. It's an ongoing, there's a lot of ongoing learning just because of the school year, because every quarter is different. So I feel I will only know well what I'm doing in August of next year. But yeah, so that's my story.
Wonderful. That's great, Tamar. Thanks so much. We could spend 2-3 hours talking and hearing more about the stories, but what the question I want to throw out next to our panelists is, as you were thinking about this opportunity that you are now in, what were you most concerned about as you thought about this next opportunity where you are right now? And I'm going to let anybody jump in here. Just get off mute and let me know.
I would say it's not a concern, but it was certainly clear in speaking with the team members at ZS, but growth. I am at a point where I really want to grow. I really want a career that evolves and develops. My children are now, in college, launched them this year. So that was not, I don't want to call it a concern, but it certainly is a different point than some other women here may be with regards to whatever your family life looks like right now. So I really wanted to focus on, growing a career and really contributing to the company.
I would agree with Laura. I was definitely looking for opportunities for growth. There were many roles that I've had in the past that kept me away from my family. I have a young son and I am a wife, and I was just not home. I wanted to be home, but there was just always something to do, some other project, some other thing. So having the opportunity for this role it gives me the opportunity to have a hybrid schedule. I'm home with my family more. I'm able to see them more. And I mean, I can't thank ExtendMed and Next Group enough for bringing some balance to my life. I think we all are looking for some balance, especially when you're a working mother.
Family was a definite concern for me because at this point I was sandwich generation. Like my mom was living with us and I had both of my kids. But I was really concerned with the retooling, right? Like I knew I needed a whole new education and a fairly intensive test required field. So the retooling and how I was going to make that happen while being a primary caregiver for both my mother and my children, and still do the work that I was testing for so that I could pay to do the work, the vicious cycle. And it was the fear of failing at any of that would break the success. And I don't do failure. So that was a nervous part.
I think for me, the biggest fear, first of all, I wanted to grow, right? And I was looking for a place where I could grow. But you know what? Even if you have, say, a lot of management skills and you're in one field and you then transfer them to a different field, it's not always going to be the same. You're going to encounter all sorts of different experiences, different people. And I think something new is always scary.
Tamar, I just want to piggyback on that. Don't let the fear of the unknown paralyze you. I actually find it kind of fun and have told myself over and over and tell my children this too, just get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's when your growth is going to happen. Absolutely challenge yourself to be uncomfortable as you are learning new skills and meeting new people and trying to understand the new structure of an organization that you may join.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you, Laura. It's scary, but if you don't do it, you're not going, like I said, I could have stayed in my previous job, sat back, my thumb, looked at my phone 5 hours a day because I was doing everything I was supposed to do. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted, again, a new opportunity. And if you don't try this new and scary thing, you're not going to get anywhere.
So I'm curious, and thanks for sharing and just sort of keeping the conversation going. As you guys now have talked about some of what you were thinking about before you started these new roles, now you've made the shift into something new and different. How have you found that shift? What have been the challenges, and how have you navigated things since this change? And any surprises, good or bad?
So I think the shift, sorry, go ahead, Chris, you didn't.
I'd say for me, I think a lot of it is because my shift wasn't from career to career. My shift was from stay-at-home mom to career. A lot of mine is the balance, like making sure that you have the balance to have time for your career, but the kids aren't just put on the back burner. Because as I'm learning, when you work from home, it can get very easy to get consumed with work that you are not aware of what's going on. You're not aware of time sometimes, especially if you got a deadline to meet. You will completely lose all track of time. You will lose all track of what the kids need, or someone, hey mom, you said you would do. And so I think that's a lot of it for me, that I'm finding the struggle in making sure that I keep the main thing, that yes, I have this job and it's great, but it's never more important than my family. And I always keep them in the forefront while I'm building my career, while I'm making myself, do what I want to do career-wise, that I never forget that you created this family. They are still important. They're just as important.
I'm super glad to let you go first, because that's exactly, I'll build off of that. The biggest thing that happened with me in my pivot, when I heard that 14% of investment bankers were women, I said, well, I need to shift the way I handle myself. I need to not be the one that shows up with coffee and donuts. I need to be the one that shows up and takes over. And what I have to be cognizant of is to leave that in the office to a certain extent, because family is still family, and we've had a shift in dynamics in our house because of that. I mean, I pretty much wore the pants before, but definitely now I do, and there's some chafing that comes with that. So we've had to kind of adjust as a household.
Rachel, I'm going to call on you. I know that you are here and would love to get your perspective as an employer, your perspective on going back to this workforce, to this population, particularly women, and how ZS has navigated that. And just your input and your perspective would be super helpful.
Sure, absolutely. So we, I mean, obviously we work, really close with Candace. We love this type of population. We're always doing a lot of things to increase our diversity at ZS. But one of the things I love the most about women who are pivoting, there's such a culture add to ZS, and we really are focusing on that right now. It's not really about, well, are they going to fit in here? Do they have the same skills as everybody else? We are looking for different. We want different because we really value innovation, and we really value when people, bring their ideas to the table, right? We're a very collaborative group. So, I mean, as far as like people pivoting in their career, bring it on, because I think those people have the best kind of experience, different perspectives, different skills that just make ZS a better place to work. So.
Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Candace, was there anything else that you wanted to add sort of through some of your conversations that you've had with some of our clients more recently about folks and what they're looking at?
Yeah, and I'll echo one of the comments made in the chat. I think a lot of folks recognize that there's wisdom that comes with having these different phases and stages of life that is really beneficial in the workplace. And it's beneficial if you're dealing with coworkers because they're going through those same stages. It's beneficial as a manager or a leader. It's beneficial because you don't sweat the small stuff typically. And, that is really important, especially when we're going through this constant change of a crisis here, a crisis there. So that benefit of wisdom and kind of the emotional EQ that women who've done a variety of things and maybe have been out of the formal workforce is hugely valuable. Now, sometimes you have to reflect that back in a different way to employers, and say it in a different way than what I just said it. But some of them get it right out of the bat, out of the gate, but others you have to reflect it differently. And so that's what, I think the work is for everyone, is to be able to tell their stories in such a way that kind of exposes that big benefit of how you can do multiple things, how you can balance, how you can drive to results and tell those stories, and at the same time debunk some of the bias that may be there, which is are you technology savvy? You know, so talk about how you've done that with technology, or, you know, are you current on all the marketing tools and you know, current things. So we do have to kind of debunk the potential biases that might be coming through the stories that you tell. Because a lot of times people won't ask those things outright. You know, they don't want to hurt your feelings. They'll just make assumptions. So, so debunking while you're telling, you know, what makes you better and different is really important.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I knew this time was going to go quickly this evening. The last question before we take questions from the audience that I wanted to throw out to our panelists is, as you think back to the transition, whether you want to use a transition, sort of your relaunch or your pivot story, can you highlight for the folks on the call tonight, what are some of the resources that you used as you started going through this conversation in your head about making this transition? And what did you lean on? Whom did you lean on? And what was that experience like?
I'd have to say, I personally went and started paying attention to people who were in the roles that I was trying to pivot to, or rather relaunch myself into. I knew that my goal was to launch into an accounting coordinator, an accounting manager role, then eventually work myself to a controller role. So knowing that that's what I'm doing, I started paying attention to those types of roles on people who were in those roles already on LinkedIn, and start looking at what do they have that I don't have or that I need to get or whatever. So knowing that in an accounting manager role, it's very important that you have certifications in different software. So I went and got certifications in software to prepare myself to already know that software before I even went in for the interviews. So that way, if there was questions about this software, I knew the software, I knew what the current terminology that was being used. I knew what certifications that I may want to look into later that perhaps an employer may reimburse for. And so I started looking into that. I started looking into reading Accounting Today, reading the journals to figure so that I knew what were the hot topics, what were the things that have changed in the years since I'd last worked as an accountant. You have the Schedule 1s, they now have Schedule 2s and Schedule 3s. So I can't wait till I get in the role to figure out, okay, now I need to know this stuff. No, I need to know before I got in the role. So I started researching everything that I wanted to know that I knew would make me successful. And then I started having conversations with controllers. I started having conversations with other business owners to see, what do you need as a business owner? Because even if I did not go into an accounting manager role, then I was going to launch my own consulting firm. And if that's the case, I needed to know what did people need? What did other business owners need? What advice do you need? What don't you know? So that I can make sure I know when it's time for me to advise you in your business.
I would add, spend time looking at or trying to dig up resources that are immediately available to you wherever you live in your geographic zone. Connect with people like Kristin did to gain a better understanding of the roles that interest you. Do research into companies and organizations that attract you. And the lovely thing about the pandemic is everybody went virtual, and everybody, yeah, I think it really helped kind of make people more accessible. So feel free to reach out, and I would encourage everybody here to connect with everybody else on LinkedIn, and you know, ping anybody, you know, if there's something in their background that is of interest to you, because I won't credit this, but somebody else said this and it stuck with me. When you're given a seat at the table, you pull up chairs. So I think everybody here is pulling up chairs, and that's how to think about it, regardless of any biases and statements that you encounter.
One thing that I was struck by listening to the panel stories here and in our pre-meeting is that we all found our helper. right? Like it's just like every good piece of literature. There's somebody there that's supposed to be your helper. We're not always receptive to that. So make sure you're looking around, seeing who your helper is and connecting with them and listening. And even if it's just feeling supported by them, like that's going to be key. Pivoting is not an easy thing. There's a lot of self-reflection that happens. Part of that's in your head. It's a lot easier if you have somebody to talk to about it.
I agree with what Deborah was saying. I mean, I think another thing that, especially if you are both a mother and a working mother, having your mental health as something that you make as a priority is also just as important, because you're not going to be able to be the best you in your family and the best you at your professional ventures or just your career, because you need to be clear-minded when you are going to work. You need to be clear-minded when you are with your family. You can't let whatever frustrations or fears that you have about taking that next step or taking a risk, like Laura was saying, sometimes it's scary to do something that you've never done before, or maybe something that you don't think that your skill set lines up with, but you need to have that moment where you look at yourself and you tell yourself, I can do this. I can do this. And I agree, having someone there to help you and support you. My husband and my son have been my biggest champions. So, that definitely helped. And obviously Next Group kept me sane throughout my interview process. So having support is imperative to your success.
I don't have much to add, but yes, the support is huge. I think exactly from your partner, your spouse, it's huge. It's like also again, kind of like what I mentioned about Candace and having this original conversation with her and kind of letting her know about my skills, hearing what she had to say. I talked to a couple of good friends, and that also helped a lot. My husband was instrumental in just helping me kind of think out loud, prepare for interviews, prepare for conversations. Just give time to yourself. Stay home maybe for an afternoon and write everything down. Prepare for an interview with all these things. Melanie was great also helping me prepare for interviews. So, I'm just so grateful to this whole network.
Ladies, thanks so much. We are at 7:21. I'd love to take a question or two. I don't know if Marissa or Candace, if you guys have had your eye on the chat a little bit better than I have. Let me give everybody a moment in the audience. If there are any questions that you have that you have not thrown in yet that you want to throw out to the panelists, please feel free to use the chat right now, and we'll try and grab one or two questions that have been flying across and throw them out to the panel. Is there anything, Marissa or Candace, that you've seen?
I think Sharon brought up a really good point about the timing of the pivoting and being really nervous about how long that could take for somebody. I don't exactly know what the question would be, but maybe if some of the panelists have some advice on, how long it did take, or, whether that was a frustrating process.
For me, the timing was almost, I don't know how to say it. It just seems like there was some sort of special calling with it, because I had been looking for a new role since the start of the summer, and got to a point near the end of the summer where I was just thinking, I really need to figure this out, but I'm just so busy. I don't really have the time to put the energy into, the job search and having to have a login and a password for every single place that I apply, and answer a questionnaire about myself and get an automated email. That process can be very frustrating and very disheartening. And I don't know, Candace reached out at just like the most perfect time. It almost, felt like there was some sort of special kismet that was involved with it, and it was, you know, exactly what I needed at the time that I needed. I think timing is everything, and you know, if this role had come to me a few years ago, I wouldn't have been ready for it the way I'm ready for it now. So, you know, I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, but I definitely believe that, you know, sometimes you have to believe in your own destiny, because sometimes the timing is there and you just don't know it.
I think also it can be, you know, kind of go slow for a while as you're exploring and just putting yourself out there and kind of experimenting, which is very important part of the process, right? And if you do that, then the actual time, sometime from when an opportunity shows up on your doorstep to closing it, is sometimes much quicker. So in the case of Vanessa, thank you for saying that. But we had talked and connected, you know, maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, I think, about a different type of role that really wasn't right for her. And she was always in my mind, right? Like, when I find the right thing, I will know. And we did, you know, we found the right thing. So it is really important that you put yourself out there into the world with us and with other people, so that they can be your agents and your helpers, as Laura had said, or Tamar, I'm sorry, whoever said that. Give credit.
Well, we've got a couple of things that we wanted to share at the very tail end. I'm going to give our panelists, anybody on the panel who wants to share any last sort of tidbit or inspirational message, anything that sort of stood out during the conversation that you think is particularly poignant, that you'd like to, you know, leave as a last thought with the folks on the call this evening.
Can I say one?
Absolutely, Chris, please.
I saw a couple ladies say, you know, you're worried about like hitting an age ceiling. Don't worry about an age ceiling. Have confidence in knowing that you have something valuable. It's not if you have something valuable, you do have something valuable to add to any table that you take a seat at, and you walk with your head held high, your shoulders held back, and you walk with that knowing that you have something to add. And you project your confidence, and you project that you know what you bring to the table. It took me years to finally get here. Like, this isn't like it took me a couple months. Like, yeah, it took a couple months, maybe a month or so to leave TurboTax to get here. But I've been trying to pivot for years. You know, I think I've gotten a bachelor's degree, a master's, and I'm finally comfortable in the role I am during the doctorate. So don't think because you went through the bachelor's and you haven't found the role that you want, that you're most comfortable in, that's it. No, it's not. Don't think because you went through the master's that now all of a sudden it's going to work, and it doesn't, that's it. That's not true. Because you can get to where I am, where you're in the 30s, the late 30s, and you're finally at the doctorate level, and you're just now feeling like I'm getting to where I want to be at career-wise. And that's okay. You don't have to run anybody else's race, because you have your own lane, and your lane is yours all your own, and you have no competition. You are your own competition.
Thanks, Chris.
I think sometimes we get stuck in our head, and taking that first step takes time to stop and self-motivate and just put that first step forward. Pick your foot up, put it down in a new place. Just do it.
At one point, I had, well, I'm still friends with this woman, but she and I developed a relationship in the fact that we were both pivoting back in, relaunching back in from very different areas, but we needed an accountability buddy. And that during the pandemic, that was a weekly Zoom call. And like Deborah, Kristin, Tamar, and Vanessa have already mentioned, it does help to have someone that you can really bounce ideas off of really, really informally, certainly Next Group is also a fabulous resource. And sometimes you just need to vent if you feel frustrated in the process. It's challenging and it's a lot of effort and work. But having a accountability person is also a helpful thing to have.
That's great. It is 7:28. I wanted to do a quick thank you to all of our panelists for your time earlier this week as we got on a prep call, for your time this evening. Your stories are inspirational. They are fun. They make us smile, but they also, I think, remind us that we all have gone through this. Candace and I both have also gone through our own stories and our own challenges and still, working through all of this, right? I do want to do a quick shout out. We do, and Marissa was kind enough to throw it in the chat. We do offer free office hours weekly, Tuesday mornings between 9 and 10:30. I am always on Zoom. They've been met with some really great interest. I have some folks who come on, every 2 weeks and just check in. Yes, sometimes to vent and sometimes I'm there just listen. But other folks jump on who need a little bit of interview prep, need a little inspiration, and just need a push in the right direction. So we do offer those up. I'm also going to ask, and Marissa already did it, is if you haven't done already, please make sure you join the network. Please make sure that we've got your name and your resume in the database. So as new things come across our desks, they come across our search desk, come across Candace's desk, that we've got you in the database, and we use that database to do searches anytime something comes up. And we get new opportunities that we're looking for great resources. Candace, any last words? And then we're going to let everybody go about the rest of their evening.
The only thing I wanted to add is, if you are looking for ongoing inspiration, so in this third act or, hitting that ceiling that really doesn't exist, but people think it does. We have a partner of ours, Diana Place, who's on the phone or whatever, we're on the Zoom. And I had the privilege of doing a storytelling conference with her, and it was 24 women of telling their stories of what their third act is. So I included a link to that website, and you can, certainly view mine as I've shared it before, but there's just such inspiration out there, women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, taking on new and different types of challenges and really crushing it. And so it is possible, and we're all going to have to do it, because you can only do the same thing for so long, right? You want to change and you want to evolve. So we're here for you when you go through that process, and really want to partner. So thank you for being here tonight. Look forward to talking with you and meeting with you and doing anything that you need us to do for you in the near future.
Wonderful. And on that note, thank you to everybody who joined in this evening. Be well, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening. And my last words to everybody is go find an accountability partner for wherever you are in your career, wherever you are in your trajectory, whether you're in the middle of a search, whether you're looking to do relaunch, whether you're looking to pivot, or whether you're looking to sort of make that next step if you're already new into an opportunity or role. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.